Welcome back to BPR. Margery Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. September 23rd at the library, an hour of Ask the Mayor with Michelle Wu. September 30th at the library, an hour of Ask the Governor with Maura Healey. You made it to another edition of Live Music Friday. This week we're joined by singer-songwriter Evan Greer. Evan's an activist, artist, debuting her new album, I say the letters, right? AMAB, and you'll explain them later. ACAB, I know what they stand for, on Friday the 19th. She also has an album release show on Saturday. That'd be tomorrow at Deep Cuts in Medford. Go to evangreer, Greer.org. Before we chat with Evan, let's listen to some music. Here she is performing $5. Welcome to you all.
Thanks so much, Jim. $5 at the door. 60 kids, 7 bands, only 4 chords. Pass the hat to cover gas. Pass out pamphlets, stop the war. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. At the local veterans of foreign wars. In the basements, in the warehouse, in the squats, in the bookstores. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. We were angry, we were hungry, we were bored. Making magic in the cracks between the cops and the landlords. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. To those problematic kings who we adored. We said we were all the same, then we became what we deplored. $5 at the door. $5 at the door. When we were young and we were anxious and unsure, we knew what we were against, finding out what we were for. $5 at the door. It was only $5 at the door. It was only $5 at the door. It was only $5 at the door.
Evan Greer, Evan, you want to join us? That was great, all of you. That was fabulous. evangreer.org, EVANGREER.org. Welcome.
That's right.
Put that baby on right there.
Deep Cuts in Medford tomorrow night. We're going to tell you how to get tickets for that whole event. So introduce members of the band. Who we listen to?
Yeah,
now?
Absolutely. We've got Raph over here on the violin.
Hey, Raph, that was great.
We got Casey Neill, who produced this whole record on guitar, who flew all the way in from Portland, Oregon. We got Lay on the cajon. We got Meagan on the upright bass. And we got Aly singing some harmony vocals with me. And I will just say, all of these people basically learned these songs yesterday.
Didn't sound like it, actually.
Yeah, it's not like playing it forever. So what's $5 at the door?
Yeah, so, this is sort of it's not a hagiography, but it's perhaps a tribute to the kind of DIY punk scene that I grew up in here in Boston, playing shows in basements in Allston and the Lucy Parsons Center bookstore and places like that, because there aren't a lot of venues here, and the ones that are want to charge you money to use them.
Okay.
And so for those of us, in this scene, we were really building it ourselves. Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
Before we talk more about you, let's talk about us, okay? You were telling us before a wonderful story about a wee Evan Greer. Can we hear about that little kid, please?
Oh, it's true. Yeah, I was saying it was kind of uncanny to hear your voices coming from actual humans because I mostly heard them out of the radio in the back of my parents' Subaru. Although I did say there was a debate because my mom was a GBH person and my dad is a WBUR person.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
It's the last time we'll talk about him, by the way. Let's be clear. So tell us about the album a little bit.
Yeah, so this record is called AMAB, ACAB, which AMAB stands for Assigned Male at Birth, and ACAB stands for something I cannot say on NPR. Oh. But let's say that it's a slogan used by punks and activists around the world to criticize the system of policing, and particularly the system of racially unjust policing that has dominated most of modern history. And so it's a little bit of a middle finger at the fascists, which perhaps we need in this particular moment in history. But to me, again, it's sort of a bit tongue-in-cheek as well of recognizing that for trans folks, we're often kind of pigeonholed as like, oh, well, you must sing trans music. And actually, we sing about all kinds of stuff. We're just like everyone else. We have a wide range of interests. There are songs on this album about singing karaoke with your partner and songs about rising up against
Did you write everything?
Authoritarianism. Yeah, these are all my songs.
They're great. They really are terrific.
Oh,
they
thanks
really
so much,
are.
Jim.
You know, speaking about the moment, Evan, Queers Against Censorship, you got those signs up there in front of your bandmates. What's that about?
Yeah, so my day job is I help run an organization called Fight for the Future, which is sort of like an ACLU for the internet. So we work on civil liberties issues, surveillance, and free expression. And Queers Against Censorship is actually a relatively recent campaign that we launched specifically here in the Boston area to call upon our Massachusetts congressional delegation, folks like Senator Markey and Senator Warren, who historically have been very outspoken in favor of LGBTQIA rights, but have occasionally advanced legislation that actually would harm our community. So, for example, we've been working with a coalition of local LGBTQ organizations to oppose the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, which is a bill that really sounds good on paper, is trying to address a very real issue, which is big tech companies deploying surveillance-driven algorithms that harm our kids, but that from our perspective and from the perspective of civil liberties experts would actually allow the Trump administration to erase resources for trans and queer youth who are under attack. And so we're calling on our senators to kind of speak up on this, and so I thought I'd bring some science here to the library to make our point.
Well, you know, we spend a lot of time criticizing the internet and the whole talk about kids with mental health problems, et cetera. But if you're queer or trans, I would think, a place of community when you're young and trying to figure it all out.
It absolutely can be. There's actually a major study from the CDC, back when we had a CDC that actually functioned, with apologies to our previous guest.
No, he's not.
I know, he's on our side.
He's on the right side.
But a CDC report on social media use among teenagers that showed, for many teenagers, it's the story that we've all heard, which is that, overuse of social media is harmful, it harms mental health outcomes. But for specific groups of teenagers, including LGBTQ teenagers, you actually see better mental health outcomes for queer youth that have access. And it's not a mystery, right? For those of us, if you grew up in a rural area, if you grew up somewhere where you don't have supportive parents, playing on Discord with your friends may be the only space that you have where you can safely express yourself. And then there's resources like the Trevor Project, which are out there providing suicide prevention for LGBTQ youth. And those are the types of resources we want to protect while holding these big tech companies accountable for the very real harm that they're doing. And we believe we can do both at the same time.
Evan, how's this market for trans artists?
Oh, it's lucrative, let me tell you. I make dozens of dollars.
How tough is it? No, really, how tough is it?
What I will say is that I was playing music before I came out as trans. I've played music now for 20 plus years. I'm not as young as I look. What I will say is that I certainly have lost some work because of it. I used to play a lot of picket lines and labor marches and things like that. But I have also gained so much community and support, and there's a real need, especially among young people, for this kind of music and for music that is made by and sung by people that look and feel like them. I wouldn't trade it in for anything.
Mayor Wu's been supportive of some of your work, has she not?
For sure. I think Mayor Wu has said a fair amount of things about some of the issues that we're talking about here, including standing up for free expression for queer and trans communities. I've also criticized Mayor Wu for some of her other positions, including the way she handled the Emerson encampment and the way that I think things have gone down at Mass and Cass. So I think
there were arrests there, if people don't recall.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think like any politician, I always prefer to have someone I want to fight, and I put Mayor Wu in that category.
We can't leave not without mentioning your confrontation with Nancy Mace, the congresswoman. Happened about a year ago, the day after the Trans Day of Visibility and an Internet Summit event. Here's some.
It's the day after Trans Day of Visibility. We have had dozens of trans people die this year because of the hate and lies that you are spreading. And if we want an internet, are we building an internet with free speech for everyone or just the privileged few? Are you going to stand up to the lives of trans people, black and brown people?
We respect freedom of speech.
God loves him, I love him, but his penis isn't going to be in my bathroom. So, at any rate, but we have a responsibility.
Well, now Nancy Mace has talked about my penis on WGBH, so that's really a career highlight, I think.
Yeah, I mean...
but not on BUR. I want to be clear about that.
We got to keep...
But what was that like, and what did you make of the whole experience?
The context of this is that, again, I run this organization. I get invited to a variety of events at the intersection of human rights and technology. I'd been invited to an event, and I later found out that Nancy Mace was one of the keynote speakers. If you're not familiar with Nancy Mace, what you just heard is a pretty good representation of her politics. She has sort of branded herself like she's like to the right of Marjorie Taylor Greene in terms of where she's positioning herself in the Congress. And so I felt called to I couldn't just sit there and let her, say these vile, hateful things to the room full of people. So I stood up and I spoke out and was, quickly removed from the room, which I anticipated, but it did get a lot of press attention and I think helped spark a conversation within the tech policy space, exactly as I said in the room. Who are we actually fighting for here? Are we just fighting to protect, everyone's access to the internet no matter what, or are we fighting to build a world where technology is a force for good, a force for liberation, rather than a force for exploitation and tyranny and greed?
Evan, last thing I want to ask you before you tell us what you're going to play another song for us is we have said on the show on a number of occasions, we've bemoaned the fact that protest music ain't what it used to be. And when you were talking to one of our colleagues when we invited you on, I think you suggested essentially that it's a pogo-esque thing. We have seen the enemy and it is us. There's plenty of it, but we generically aren't giving it play. What is your position?
Yeah, this has been a pet peeve of mine, and I think many other musicians who are speaking to political and social issues. And I think the reality is it's not that there's no protest music anymore. It's that, frankly, we've lost so many of the types of media institutions that helped amplify that. I mean, here we are on public radio, which, as we all know, is under active attack by this administration and by so much else that's going on in the world. Like, these are the types of spaces where you maybe would have heard a Phil Oakes or a Joan Baez, and where you should be hearing, Dead Prez and modern activists and musicians who are out there speaking out now. I think the other thing I'd say is I often hear this from, to be frank, folks that are a little older than me, and the reality is that a lot of protest music that's out there right now is hip-hop, is punk rock, is maybe not kind of sit-down folk music that perhaps we think of traditionally as protest music. And so I think it's just important that we go out and find it. It's out there. There's plenty of protest music.
I want to thank you when you said folks a little older than me. The fact that you did not make eye contact with me at that moment was very admirable. I want you to know exactly. Okay. What are you playing?
So we're going to play a song called Spray Paint, which is another little kind of nostalgic look back. I've been playing music like this since I was a high schooler here in the Boston area. I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and organizing protests against the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was where I cut my teeth on politics and music. And so this is kind of looking back a little bit at that. And now I've got a high schooler in the Boston area, and gosh, we still seem to have genocide going on in the Middle East, and our tax dollars going to all kinds of things. And it feels like things, in some ways, haven't changed that much in the last 20 plus years, but here's a song about it.
Can you gently put your headset down and rejoin your bandmates?
I can do that.
Evan Greer.
And I want to tell people, Evan Greer, she's playing an album release show at Deep Cuts in Medford tomorrow night. More info and tickets at deepcuts.rocks/events or at evangreer.org. We're going to hear Spray Paint right now from Evan Greer and her band.
We are, right now, at this very moment. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Marjorie. All right. I remember the day my math teacher said, "Go turn on the TV." My whole class watched the towers fall. We'd all just turned 16, calculating all the things to come in the years ahead. We spray painted the war on every stop sign, but it didn't stop the war. So we rode our bikes to the lake after high school and shoplifted from chain stores. We weren't lost, we were finding our own way through the show. What if we were born at the end? What if we were born at the end? We were born in flames and we will break before we bend. But what if we were born at the end? In the yearbook became a lawyer overdose, and half of us are raising kids, and most of us are broke. Our parents had some money, ain't it funny? It's a joke. What happened to my generation? Reaganomics, awful toll. All the anarchists got married to people we met on our phones. What if we were born at the end? What if we were born at the end? We were born in flames and we will break before we bend. But what if we were born at the end? Thanks so much, y'all.
Evan
Fabulous,
Greer.
you all. Thank you so much.
She's playing an album release show at Deep Cuts in Bedford tomorrow night. For more info and tickets at deepcut.rock/events or evangreer.org. Evan and the band, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you so much.
Deep Cuts in Medford tomorrow night, deepcuts.rock/events or evangreer.org. Coming up after this quick break, just enough time for our two more things. I'm Margery Eagan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, Massachusetts may have